So, hey guys, today I feel like kind of batting for Konami for today. So, today we'll be going over like the ban lists that we're getting in Master Duel. So, in nature, they're typically going to be different from OCG and TCG ban lists because Master Duel entirely different for a lot of reasons. So, we'll start with the first point I want to make, accessibility, right? So, for example, with Tier Limit, uh, okay, the reason Fuelement isn't killed, right? Like, and most decks don't get killed in Master Duel and are left at least in a playable state is because they want the decks to be playable. Some people are just saying like, oh, it's because, these cards are like UR, so they're only going to hit the normal or rare cards. And you know why that might be? Konami does get to choose the rarity of the cards, right? So if they were made UR to begin with, I'm pretty sure the intention was not to hit them to begin with if they were like UR cards. And I think that's pretty logical, right? Because you as the player will probably know that the UR cards will probably be fine to make, right? Your deck will still be playable to some extent, even if these cards are URs, right? It's actually much worse for like from many different perspectives. If like we kill Cash and or not Cash, if we kill Tier and we're just left with like these guys. So let's say we just have this and no Kikelos. How are we supposed to play now? Like reasonably, it's pretty bad at this point, right? Like imagine your main deck looking like this. No Kikelos. Uh, Deck not super playable. And the accessibility point is important because this is not in person like how you would play in real life, right? So that is another advantage that like Master Duel has. So one of the things about Master Duel is you can just essentially pick up the game and play like whatever deck you kind of want, right? Because the decks aren't completely gutted. So if you wanted to play Cash for whatever reason, right? Maybe you do enjoy playing Cash. Well, first off, hey, getting my refund here. But yeah, if we're playing uh Cash, right? You can't really play Kashtira that well in the TCG, but you can play it in Master Duel because a Rise Art is just here. So format differences and such, like there's no side deck here, best of one versus best of three. A lot of things to consider in that regard, but if we just consider like accessibility of being able to just play online and just like play whatever deck you want, Master Duel has that going, and it doesn't kill decks. So like let's say we have, for example, Tearlament, right? And Tearlament is killed pretty hard in like the OCG and TCG. Like, but where else are you going to play Tearlament, right? It's just in Master Duel, and it's not like that degenerate or anything, right? So even if you personally like dislike a deck, there are still people that like a deck, and I personally don't have an issue with any deck unless they're like super degenerate or like relatively toxic strategies, like stun. My guy, we're really playing Did You Open Evenly? Like, come on. That's not really fun. But yeah, that's like a reason for like some of the weird hits. So if you look at MathMech, they don't want to actually kill MathMech. That's why we see a lot more like consistency hits being done, right? And Diameter actually was a relatively big hit. Not so much like Parallel Exceed, but if your opponent already opened Diameter, this allows them to play through like way too many hand traps, and that's kind of like problematic. So Snake Eye, I'm not sure like when they're going to be hitting Snake Eye, but you can already tell the the hits aren't going to be like super interesting. They are going to hit it at all. We're probably looking at like Snake Eye Ash hits, just judging from this. Like Snake Eye Ash might be limited, and this will just affect the grind on the deck mostly. If Snake Eye Ash is hit, which is alright, I guess. But then we look at like some other decks, just if we just keep looking down the line of everything that was hit by the ban list, everything is still going to be mostly playable. And like, surprisingly, right now we don't have a lot of cards we actually need to hit. But I mean, like, if I were to choose some cards, I would have a select few I would want to hit. So, starting with this Fossil Dino. Yeah. Wow, why is this card at 3? Not really feeling it. Okay, so Fossil Dino. Not a big fan of Fossil Dino, but, you know, it is what it is. If we were to just, like, murder and massacre every single, like, list ever, you know, kinda sucks. There are some, like, reasonable hits, I suppose. Some not as reasonable. So if we look at branded, Reddit has gone hit, like, a lot, right? We have, like, 1 Serenier, 1 Fusion, 1 Opening, 2 Eluber, but the deck, pretty playable. No real issue with, like, just play branded, right? These are mostly just consistency hits, because your opponent opening branded Fusion just feels literally like, you know, did I have Ash Blossom Geospring for my opponent? Seems like I didn't. Oh well, I guess, you know. That's kind of how that goes. And then, if you have like an Imperm or something, it's just like, oh, I guess my Imperm didn't matter because my opponent had Branded Fusion already, you know? And holding for like after Branded Fusion just feels bad because there is actually counterplay. So specifically, we have Sending Comedy, I believe. Wherever Comedy is. I don't think Comedy shows up here. Oh, there it is. So, Comedy effect. Great. That dodges Imperms out. It doesn't feel like super great. And there's also like technically chain blocking, which can happen, but I don't think chain blocking is like super relevant. Like to chain block like a Lubellion or something. So, following this up, right? All of the decks here, pretty playable. I don't think, like, aside from like having a lack of support, I don't think there's like any decks that are super unplayable because of the ban list anymore, aside from like a select few decks. So all of these hits right now, well, I guess Hulk does affect some decks, but whatever. All these hits, let's look and see if any are like preventing you from playing any given deck. I guess Chaos Ruler to an extent is kind of, but still playable. And then looking through all of these, I believe there is just one deck currently like super affected by the ban list, but it's not like super relevant because they will get their support later. So Kieran will probably be unbanned whenever Magispector gets their like support. Right now they're not that good anyway, so honestly Konami's just saving you from yourself at this point, so I guess that's fine. Aside from that, these are mostly just to stop like FTKs or dumb things. That's why a lot of these cards are just hit. They were a bit degenerate. That seems to be about it, right? Yeah. Nothing here like super kills any strategy. They could be weaker, sure, but I would not go as far as to say unplayable necessarily. And I mean, I guess the one deck that is unfortunate because this deck relies too much on like Hulk and it's not really playable without Hulk in my opinion. Zombie World. Yeah, this kind of got hit, but I mean, this is just feels like a lack of support. Because technically, like, Hulk was not a Zombie World card, so that kind of just sucked. So whatever. Wouldn't focus too hard on that one. But yeah, just in general, what we're looking at here, right? Essentially, like, just any deck is playable, even like the somewhat stronger ones, because of accessibility reasons, you know, Master Duel being online and all that, and best of one, you can just play and pick up whatever uh, deck you want, and it'll always be in a somewhat playable state. That's why like decks are never killed in Master Duel, essentially, right? So if I want to play cash, I can play cash. If I want to play tier, I can play tier, I guess, right? If you want to play Ishizu, yeah, that's not gonna happen because tier. But yeah, I don't think that deck really had that good of an identity going anyways. If you wanted to play like Sprite has some hits as well, but I mean, Sprite perfectly playable, as with many other decks, right? So yeah. Uh, Personally, I'm hoping Sprite Sprint gets limited, not because I care about the card. I just want my dust back. But yeah, well, not really back. I didn't craft them, but you know, uh, a little tangent there. But yeah, essentially, uh, if you want to play like any given deck, pretty much, it's probably playable. There's some decks that just shouldn't be playable, and those are like the toxic degenerate ones. And Konami like does do their best to kind of like kill those like when they can. And at the same time, though, you know, despite like stun and stuff being degenerate, there are still people that like playing stun, I guess. So Konami is also appealing to them as well. You know, Konami's trying to play all sides. And I don't think it's super always to do with rarity. Like, whoa, why won't they hit this card? This card really kills that deck. That's literally why they're not hitting it, right? So like with Super Heavy Samurai, like you might not like Super Heavy Samurai, but there's someone that enjoys playing this deck, right? And that's why I think the best thing they could really do, realistically do, is maybe hit Soul Piercer, but whatever. We can keep doing like small consistency hits to Super Heavy, or not. Deck's not even like seeing that much play in my opinion. I haven't seen it that much personally, but it could change from like person to person. Right now, most of my games are against Snake Eye, so yeah, that's kind of how it goes for me. So you know, there's also like this concept, I suppose, like play rate doesn't have anything to do with like deck needing to be hit specifically, right? It's just a matter if like the deck feels a little bit too degenerate or not, right? But like for one deck, I think they took like the hits too far. Probably just going to have to be Pearly. I don't think the hit on Delicious Memory was really that warranted. But like aside from that, right? Uh, we're doing pretty well here. I would say so, at least anyways. And they got their support. It wasn't too long, I suppose, so now Pearly's going to be like relatively playable again. And I don't think they're probably, yeah, I don't think they're necessarily going to need to do anything to Pearly. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. And actually, wait, didn't they put like really pretty memory to like 2 or something? Yeah, that was pretty weird. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.